Hey, what's up? Hello, Barbie, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, a Simply Nailogical podcast.
We've been taken over by the dolls.
We've been Barbenheimered.
Barbie washed.
Barbie washed?
Brainwashed, but Barbie.
Okay. We saw Barbie. We saw Oppenheimer.
Barbenheimer.
We are Barbenheimer.
We fell.
The marketing worked.
It. The marketing it got me to the theater. It's crazy. Like
Cristine
now that I think about it.
Went to the movie theater.
To a live movie theater in IRL. We went to a movie theater.
No, we like movies. Or I'll speak from I like movies a lot. I think you like watching movies.
I like watching movies like in my house. But...
You are less inclined to go to movie theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I haven't seen a movie in movie theaters since
before COVID.
2020, I think.
Pre-COVID probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
No one was going in 2020.
I saw Sonic the Hedgehog, I think might have been the last movie I saw in theaters. What was the last movie you saw in a movie theater?
I don't remember. This? Like, it was so long ago. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really someone who appreciates in the same way that other people do, like hearing it on a big screen. Like, I feel like I'm totally fine just watching it on my television.
You don't like the sticky seats and other people making noise and looking at their phones and coughing and...
No.
People who bring babies to movies.
But you know what was cool? Was when we went to Barbie, there were so many people dressed up.
People wearing costumes.
I've never witnessed something like that for as long as I can remember. And unless maybe I was like a teenager or there was like a kids movie and some kids like wanted to dress up for it. But I haven't seen that, but it's also because maybe I don't go to the movies. But I don't think it's been happening, right? Like other movies, you don't see a bunch of people dress up for it.
I think it's easier to wear pink than it is to dress up as like a character from Toy Story or something, though, right?
True, but it wasn't just pink. Like people were wearing like cowboy frills that looked like Ryan Gosling's character. Yeah, we saw that at Oppenheimer because other people were seeing Barbie. Did you not notice that yesterday?
I noticed a lot of people wearing pink.
Yeah, but they were like dressed up like it was a Taylor Swift concert. There's like fancy boots,
a little bit of Taylor Swift energy,
tassels. Yeah,
yeah, but it's fun. So we saw both movies. We saw Barbie almost a week ago.
Barbie first, then Oppenheimer. Not on the same day. That's
no,
too much.
I think you'd have to be pretty crazy. They're both Barbie's 2 hours. Oppenheimer is almost exactly 3 hours. We did see Oppenheimer on an IMAX screen.
What does that really mean?
It's just it's bigger.
It's just big. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, what did you think? The movie was very loud. I was worried about you for that one.
Before we continue, obviously there's spoilers for both movies. Yes. But yeah, we're despoilering ourselves. So we're just going to talk about the entire movies, give our reviews or whatever. So if you haven't seen Barbie or Oppenheimer and you would like to see it and don't want it spoiled, then don't listen. But if you don't care and you just want to hear about it, then like stay for a good time. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll talk about both movies, but like just the general experience of going to theaters first for people who don't want spoilers. Like, I mean, do you feel like you want to go to movie theaters more now or no? This was sort of like the marketing worked.
I think this was an event. And I think that Oppenheimer largely benefited from Barbie's PR campaign. And then the subsequent memification of Barbenheimer and like how they were competing that just social media did. I feel like Oppenheimer's box office is probably much higher because of this. But like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, but like, I don't know that. I feel like a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise seen Oppenheimer just because it's not their type of movie went just so they could participate in this like Barbenheimer dichotomy evaluation.
I could buy that. Often when big movies are coming out, like they don't like it when big movies come out at the exact same time because they think they're just competing for people's money. But yeah, I don't think that was the case with this. I don't think there were a bunch of people being like, I would have seen Oppenheimer, but instead I'm seeing Barbie. I think you're right. A lot of the marketing made people maybe want to see both, but otherwise they have pretty distinct interests to people.
And honestly, I don't think I would have seen either of them if it weren't for
if I hadn't dragged you to them.
Well, no, but just like the whole marketing of like, which one are you seeing? Like, what nail art are you today? Like, I've seen a bunch of nail content creators making nail art around
Barbie.
it too.
Especially has spent an enormous amount of money on the marketing, clearly. And Barbie's the much more successful movie early. I think it already passed $500 million in box office, which is on, I think, the Mario movie.
What does that mean? Yeah, like compared to all-time highs.
I think for the biggest movie this year will be the Mario movie, which was over $1 billion worldwide. But Barbie, after a week, is already at 500 million. Wow. So I guess it depends how much it slows down in the second and third week, but
come on, Barbie,
super
let's go
successful.
Party.
Actually, I guess we're getting to spoilers now. I liked the Barbie movie more than Oppenheimer.
Yeah, same.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
I liked them both a lot.
Okay.
One, Barbie was like really interesting, and I wanted to talk about it after. And I find I've just been like having conversations with people about it and thinking about it. Oppenheimer was like an amazing spectacle, but it just kind of was an experience. And I don't think it's really left me like, thinking about how society is organized. You know what I mean?
But like, to be fair, both movies do very different things. Pitting them against each other about like which one's better isn't even the fairest question.
Sure.
Like, but yeah, I know we understand.
Bad question.
That. No. But like, I hear you. Just which one was more enjoyable? It makes sense that Barbie's probably more enjoyable to more people because of its mass appeal, and it's a little more lighthearted. So like, that's kind of an obvious,
Is that obvious?
I think so.
I don't know. If you had told me 2 years ago I would like a Barbie movie, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah, but even from the previews, wasn't it clear it wasn't like just some frilly movie? Like even from the trailers, like I knew this was a little bit more and interesting, maybe a little dark humor. Like you could sense that from the previews, even though you didn't know exactly what it was about. So I knew it would be like not for like 6-year-olds.
I didn't know that.
Really?
I don't think
it was for
I knew
6-year-olds?
I don't know I didn't really. I read a few reviews where that clearly that talked about it having like it being a commentary on like gender politics and society.
Like Ryan Gosling
that
isn't gonna do a movie for kids.
I don't know, if you throw enough money at people, they'll act and. He'll do the voice of I'm a snake in a Disney movie that's not saying anything interesting. I don't know.
I don't think so. I feel like he always
think I'm not giving
good
Ryan
roles.
Gosling enough credit?
I mean, I didn't just recently look over his movie history, but I feel like he picks good roles.
Orson Welles was the voice of a cartoon robot at the end of his career. Like good actors sometimes might just want to get paid to be in kids' movies.
I'm not saying that's impossible, but I always thought from seeing the previews and knowing who the director was that this wasn't just like some silly, frilly movie for 12-year-olds.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of the conversation around Barbie now, I think a lot of people are arguing about whether it's a kids' movie or not. Or a lot of the people having arguments about the meaning of the movie seem to be confused about whether it's a kids' movie or not. Because sometimes...
What is a kids' movie?
Well, this movie, I think it's clear this movie wasn't for children because it had references to like 1990s BBC adaptations to Pride and Prejudice and Marcel Proust.
But Shrek has references to like more adult stuff, right? But it can be for kids.
A kid could watch this movie and is like, there's bright colors, there's pink on the screen.
Yeah.
But like clearly the movie was, I think, appealing to like millennial women for the most part. I think that maybe grew up playing with Barbie dolls.
I think it's fair to say their target audience was millennials and older, predominantly women, but also for everyone. But I feel like it does a good enough job that it can appeal to the broadest audience possible while still having that kind of focus group of who they were targeting.
It's just funny to me because like in the social media first of all, my biggest advice to anyone who wants to see these movies and hasn't is just ignore what the like weird culture war like batshit crazy Twitter takes on
if you
either
delete
of these
Twitter
movies.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, delete social
delete
media.
X or whatever.
But I find it funny that like I've seen some like conservative commentators complain about the movie and they'll use like it's a movie for kids as like an insult or something, or be like it's a movie for kids, why are they like mentioning the Supreme Court? But then at the same time, I've seen like...
Don't tell children about the court system.
But then I'll see like the ladies on The View being like, why are conservatives talking about this movie? It's a movie about dolls for kids. And it's like they're both
wrong.
Engaging in like what is obviously not true. That this movie actually does have some interesting things.
How do we summarize the plot of Barbie?
Well, let's do that. Okay.
Because it's like, I was trying to think about it and I'm like, it's one of those movies that I wish I could just be like, just watch it. Just spend 2 hours, go to the theater and watch it. Not sponsored.
Okay, I'll give a little summary and just pull this off the internet just so we all know what we're talking about.
Yes.
So there's Margot Robbie is stereotypical Barbie. So she's not like, I'm the president Barbie or I'm gynecologist Barbie.
Can I give just a tiny bit of background on Barbies?
Yeah.
Since it's like I was a child who played with Barbies.
Yeah, tell us.
I remember having Barbies, and when I was a kid, they started to release like different types of Barbies, and then there was like Dr. Barbie and Firefighter Barbie and Veterinarian Barbie. And that to me was like, oh, they're trying to be inspiring to show that the Barbie is everything and anything you could want to be when you grow up.
Yes.
To start to teach young girls, because it hadn't really been taught like in the decades before me in the same way on such a big scale with toys, something as simple as toys. That like that was messaging that I really saw. Kind of like how I feel like Apple a decade later did like the whole iPod, iPhone, and it's like, it's all about you. And then it's like, something. I feel like there was a little bit of that, but for Barbies, but for young girls at that time. And it was something that I don't recall seeing that much, that pervasively in toys when I was growing up in the like early 90s. So Barbie was kind of, I feel like really fundamental and pivotal in young girls' toys, because they say they played such a big role in like showing young kids like, you can be a vet, you can do this.
Yeah, but like, well, okay, yeah. So yeah, there was just Barbies, and then I remember as a kid there were more Barbies that are like Barbies that have jobs, and like pregnant Barbie and Barbies to represent more diverse identities and things like that. I will say like my memory of discourse around Barbie dolls when I was young though was that they were like a symbol of unrealistic
that too
body image for women, right? Which this movie sort of engages with all of that a little bit. But yeah, this is all to say the main character in this movie is the not firefighter or Dr. Barbie. She is just Barbie.
She's just stereotypical blonde, beautiful.
Yeah, so she lives in Barbie land with all the other Barbies, which is a matriarchal society where all women are self-confident, self-sufficient, and successful, while the Kens just spend their days on the beach. The Barbies hold all the important job positions like doctors, lawyers, and politicians. The beach Kens are only happy when when he is with Barbie and seeks a closer relationship. Barbie rebuffs him in favor of independence and female friendships. During a dance party, Barbie is suddenly stricken with a sense of her own mortality and fear of death. The next day, she finds out she can no longer complete her usual routine and discovers her feet have gone flat and she has cellulite. Weird Barbie, a wise but disfigured outcast, tells her that to cure her affliction, she must travel to the real world and find the child playing with her. On her way to the real world, Barbie finds that Ken has hidden in the back of her car and she reluctantly allows him to join her. They arrive at Venice Beach, and the two cause multiple antics and are arrested, alarming the Mattel CEO, who orders their capture. Barbie tracks down her owner, a tween girl named Sasha, who criticizes her for encouraging unrealistic beauty standards. Distraught, Barbie discovers that Gloria, a Mattel employee and Sasha's mother, is the catalyst of her existential crisis. Gloria begins playing with Sasha's Barbie toys while experiencing her own identity crisis, inadvertently transferring her concerns to Barbie. Gloria and Sasha rescue Barbie from Mattel's CEO and his subordinates, and the three travel together back to Barbie Land. Meanwhile, while Ken was in the real world, he learns about patriarchy and for the first time feels respected and accepted. So he returns to Barbie Land and persuades the other Kens into taking over. And the Barbies are subjugated into submissive roles such as maids, housewives, and agreeable girlfriends. Barbie arrives back in Barbie Land and tries to convince Ken and the Barbies to return to the way things were, only to be rebuffed. She becomes depressed, but Gloria gives her an inspirational speech about what it means to be a woman. With the encouragement of Sasha, Gloria, Weird Barbie, Alan, and other discontinued dolls, the Barbies free themselves of the Kens and manipulate them to fight amongst themselves, allowing the Barbies to regain their positions of power and prevent the Kens from altering the constitution of Barbie Land to enshrine male superiority. The Barbies also realize the error of their previous societal system and decide to make some changes in Barbie Land, including better treatment for the Kens and the outcast dolls. Barbie and Ken apologize to each other and acknowledge their failings. Ken bemoans that he has no identity or purpose without Barbie, to which Barbie encourages him to find an autonomous identity. Barbie, who remains unsure of her purpose and identity, meets with the spirit of Mattel co-founder and Barbie inventor Ruth Handler, who explains that Barbie's story has no set ending and her ever-evolving history surpasses that of her roots. Barbie decides to become a human and return to the real world, and This is sort of represented and symbolized in her first visit to a gynecologist. That's the Barbie movie.
Okay, where do we start? I feel like the movie had a lot of really good like scenes and moments in it. But if I had to pick what I thought was the most interesting to unpack and watch unfold was the way that they juxtapose how things worked in Barbie Land with the real world. And one like specific example that comes to mind is where in Barbie Land, you know, the main Barbie is just like walking around waving at everyone. And she goes to the Supreme Court and it's a bunch of like beautiful, wonderful ladies. And it's like, hi, justices. Hi, Barbie. And then in the real world, when she goes with Ken, she's walking by, she sees a poster, like a billboard, and it's and she goes, oh, there's the Supreme Court justices. But if you look at the text, it says like Miss Universe pageant.
It's like a beauty pageant.
Yeah, it's a beauty pageant. Because in the real world, the beautiful like lineup of women she was seeing who look so powerful with like crowns on are not Supreme Court justices. They are people who are, you know, using their
Objects
beauty,
of
their
the
objects
male
of beauty.
gaze.
Yeah. So I thought that there's little parallels that were really interesting to pick up on. And that was the point of the movie, just to point out all of those things. How, if you flip the script, like how different would things be?
Yeah, like the most interesting thing about the movie is the parallel between the real world and Barbie Land. And I thought a brilliant decision they made, the filmmakers in the movie, from my perspective, was using Ken's like discovery of the real world.
And horses.
Yeah. But
okay,
yeah,
explain it. Just tell it.
well, yeah, I think like you see through Ken's eyes, like in Barbie Land, like the men are basically. I think we need to sort of better explain like what Barbie Land represents, because it is like the feminist vision that a toy company sold little girls sort of come to life. That's what Barbie Land is. Mm-hmm. So the Kens are like a sort of second class citizens, because little girls playing with Ken dolls were really just like accessories to like coexist with Barbie in her dream house, right? Mm-hmm. No one really cared about Ken's
there was
personality
no
or personhood. Yeah. So in this Barbie world, which is really just like the fantasy of a little girl's thoughts about femininity, I guess, Ken has really no meaning or purpose outside of appealing to Barbie, or his identity is entirely dependent on his relationship with Barbie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the movie, I think the funniest part of the movie is Ken going to the real world and being like, men are respected here. And he's seeing like cops riding around on horses and businessmen like dismissing their secretaries. And he's like, for the first time, he's seeing men be respected and sort of looked at as superior
as
in ways
boss.
He would never would have like, experienced in Barbie.
They
Land.
were bossing around women in the real world, and he was like, "What is this?" And Ryan Gosling was amazing, by the way.
He's excellent,
I feel like his performance was just incredible, and you'd be like, wait, what? It's like a Barbie movie. It's kind of like corny, but he did such a good job of the like nuanced like facial expressions and the way he was like, the horses. Like it was like really like we laughed a couple times. It was really good.
And at the end, he's like, once I realized patriarchy wasn't just about horses, I was kind of disappointed.
And then like he picks up all these books from the library on the patriarchy and like one on horses.
Yeah, he's going around like taking notes on like the patriarchy and how it works.
And when he goes back to Barbie Land, he tells all the Kens about like, hey, listen, out there, like things work differently. Mm-hmm. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna trash this place, trash this Barbie house, and turn it into like Ken's casa house home or whatever he called it. He
yeah,
gave it, like,
casa something. Ken's casa dojo Loma. I can't remember.
Yeah, and then he started treating the Barbies like shit because that's what he learned from the real world. You know, just like being like, what do you want? Like that kind of attitude.
Yeah, but I thought like it was sort of brilliant that they I think a lot of people who didn't see this movie are eager to dismiss it as just sort of like this misandrist, like all men are dumb or stupid sort of message. I actually thought like I don't know. I don't want to make this review about like what it says about masculinity, right? But like there is a sort of message or character arc for Ken and the Kens in this story that I think is actually like interesting and thoughtful, in that, you know, Ken is almost like symbolic of like incels in our culture today, right? And yeah, there's a lot of really toxic media that appeals to men today on mostly on social media that really revolves around like the resentment of women and their empowerment being sort of tied to that. That's why you have like the Andrew Tates of the world that sell men this sort of vision of their self-improvement, but it's always packaged in combination with
Taking control of
the
women.
yeah
in your
disrespect
life.
of
Yeah.
women, in to put it in gentle terms. And I thought this movie at least offered a bit of a it isn't like a outright condemnation of men as much as it's like for Ken it's like you need to his own character arc is one of like self-discovery of like you can, your identity can't just be defined by how much you have Barbie or control Barbie or are in a relationship with Barbie. You need to work on yourself and figure out who you are independent of the women you want to be with or control or whatnot, right? So I
Yeah.
actually think that's like a more helpful, practical message to a lot of men who struggle with women and their happiness around these issues.
Yes, but I also understand how those men aren't will not want to attempt
Watch
to
the
learn
Barbie
anything
movie.
from the Barbie movie. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not listening to the
I
Barbie
actually,
movie.
I would, okay, if you're thinking about dating a guy, if you're a woman who wants to date a guy, take them to the Barbie movie. Show them the Barbie movie and see what they think. I think it's like
Oh, I'd like a
a
test.
litmus test. Is that the right expression? The canary in the coal mine. Or that's not the right expression. But I think if a guy cannot relate at all or empathize at all with what the movie says about women's experience in the modern world, I think that's a huge red flag.
Interesting. Actually, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Like, how does the guy in your life react to this movie?
Because I find it super depressing to see the sort of social media reaction to this from men who just are so dismissive of it, as if like they don't have a mother, sister, daughter, female partner. Like for them to not find any empathy in themselves for what this movie is trying to talk about is just so bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's very like men's rights vibes to dismiss what the movie was trying to say and just make it about how like, oh, the movie just thinks men are dumb. Because I don't think that was the case either. And very early on in Ken's character development, like the first few, I don't know if it was the first few lines or the scene, but like Ryan Gosling, and he plays it so well, but he's just like constantly trying to get Barbie's attention, and when she doesn't pay attention, he's like, "Rrr." And like and that's one of the memes with the hi Barbie meme that like you see going around on TikTok, because they're just saying hi Barbie and he's just like fuck because he wants her attention. So very early on and throughout the movie, it's always just Ken being upset and not thinking of like literally anything else other than being disappointed that he doesn't have her attention. And then you, over time, as you were explaining, see his character arc that maybe it isn't just about getting her attention and you shouldn't center your life around someone. That doesn't mean you can't be like interested in a person. But I also found it kind of weird how he never took no for an answer, which probably was another point the director and the screenwriter wanted to make, right? And it only took at the very end when Barbie was like being incredibly compassionate and kind and caring, which she like didn't have to do after his like repeated advances of never leaving her alone. She didn't have to be like kind and sit down and explain to him, but she did. But like you don't have to do that either, and that it had to come to that point was also kind of sad in Ken's storyline and a bit like maybe reflective of the commentary that the director was trying to make. But yeah.
There's also just the parallel, like if you found yourself frustrated that Ken's character, just representing men, was reduced to being the love interest of Barbie, that's also kind of the point, right? Because like how many movies
Yeah.
have we seen where a female character only exists to be an object of romantic interest of men? So I think like I just feel like there's been so much misunderstanding that this movie is like advocating for a certain societal structure or ways men and women should interact with each other, as much as it's just like putting a mirror up to our society or showing like some inverted versions of the way things are now,
It's a
rather
commentary.
than being like, no, we should all live in a society where men and women don't date each other because we're better apart. Like I've seen people write reviews of this movie as if it's suggesting like the only conclusion is that just like men and women can't like coexist or something.
Really?
Well, yeah, well, because like the movie does end basically on a note of her being like, go figure out who you are. I'm going to go figure out who I am. The movie never really portrays like any sort of healthy version of what it is like for men and women to coexist, which it doesn't have to do. But I think some people have like used that to conclude the movie as advocating for some like some version of society where women just don't have to deal with men, maybe.
Yeah, which is a refreshing movie to watch.
Yeah, it's just different,
like
right?
it's different. It's good, and in some ways, it almost has this feeling of like returning to the simple childhood of the average experience of a young girl. Because when you're a young girl playing with Ken dolls, or Barbie dolls. Sorry, I meant Barbie dolls. I said Ken. Wow.
We're talking a lot about Ken.
No, but like you care more about Barbie, and like you were saying earlier, Ken's like he's okay, like he's there. If they want, if your Barbies want to get married, then maybe you play that. But like it's just you ultimately care more about your Barbie if you were asked like which one you want, and that's just the simplicity of the young girl childhood experience, which is very different than an experience for young boys. But that's not what this movie was about.
Yeah, like I think the final act of the movie sort of engages in this more like wish fulfillment idea, like where you see the Barbies reclaim Barbie Land. To me, that's just like sort of feel good movie making for mostly the female audience, more than it was like a more interesting, thoughtful take on things. You know what I mean? Because like for me, I think the idea of Barbie Land as being that like sort of little girl's idea of being empowered, and then seeing how the real world clashes with that was what was really interesting about the movie. And so it kind of felt like in that final act, it engaged more in just like the sort of feel good, typical sort of Hollywood ending where the Barbies just win in Barbie Land. But really, I felt like it should have been more of a explicit acknowledgement of like maybe Barbie Land is like sort of reclaimed as like the hope little girls in the real world have about how society could be better, which I'm not sure that totally came through for me.
How did you feel watching the scene where the Barbies have to work together to kind of take their town back, and they started to like scheme a little bit?
Yeah, that to me was kind of the weakest.
Yeah.
I guess if there's two things that I didn't love about the movie, it was that felt like a pretty cliche Hollywood, but like I guess it's just.
But like
It
for this
is
type of
satisfying
movie,
for the audience to see it. It's not like it has to be that deep or you don't have to be that analytical about
I
it.
know.
The other piece that I thought was similarly kind of superficial was the all-male board of directors at Mattel, the toy company, sort of representing like the sort of corporate interest in wanting to trap Barbie and not let her realize her personhood. It was represented by Will Ferrell as the CEO and just a bunch of white men around a table, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Which, like, in actuality, like, you can have... it doesn't just have to be white men around a board table to represent patriarchy or how corporate interests...
Or capitalism.
It doesn't...
But they're doing a commentary on history, too, so... Like,
yeah, but like the board of directors of Mattel is like half women, and like the CEO of Mattel.
Maybe today it is. I don't know if it was that decades ago. I'm not sure.
I guess just like the point could have like, I think it was really hitting you over the head with this idea, whereas I actually think it's there's a more nuanced point that like women in executive corporate positions can also perpetuate the exact same societal structures that old white men do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know the history of the executives at Mattel, like who's who and how long has it been that way. So it's hard to say what they were commenting on. Is it current or is it historical? I got the sense it was more of like a historically this has been society. And yeah, they're doing the hyperbole of like the fumbling, bumbling white man idiots, like with Will Ferrell leading the pack, who was really good at the role too, representing that. I thought it was well done.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What about well, we've talked about Ken a lot. What about Barbie's story, Christine? Did you like Barbie's character arc?
I thought her conversation with Weird Barbie was interesting. And because I feel like, well, first of all, we've all kind of cut up a doll's hair and like scribbled on our faces. And,
Weird Barbie represents like the Barbie doll that got played with too hard.
Yeah, and you like ripped her legs off or cut her hair or like just
Constantly
fucked
in
her
the
up.
splits.
Like,
Yeah.
whatever. So that was Weird Barbie, but in the movie they were using her to represent looking closer to what a real person looks like, because like things about you aren't perfect, right? So she had like imperfect hair and like makeup, and she was commenting about how like she had cellulite, or like, oh, you're gonna get cellulite, and she was saying that to stereotypical perfect Barbie. So I thought that those conversations were interesting to watch, kind of how they would have someone in the Weird Barbie character explain to stereotypical Barbie what it's really like in the real world. And she's like, get ready for it. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And I guess what about Barbie's conclusion? Because the ending was basically the resolution is, even after fixing Barbie Land, Barbie now seeing the real world and all the beauty and pain that comes with living a real life, because Barbie Land isn't a utopia in this movie to me. My interpretation was Barbie Land represents like this very plastic place where people don't really feel
Or think much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So even if Barbie liberates Barbie Land, she is left with this feeling of like, this isn't for me anymore. I want to know what it's like to actually sort of feel things and be a real woman, even with all the pain and heartache and oppression and all those things that come with it. So like, but so she has the agency to make the choice that she still wants to be a human.
I think, yeah, her character was given like a simple mind. That was kind of the point of it. But when she started to learn that the real world exists and that there's sad people there, and so she started to cry, right? There's a few, like she cried, it upset her that people were upset by her and the body standards that she like incidentally imposed on them that she didn't really realize. And she was sad that like the mom was sad and had played with the Barbie, and there was a sad story, and you saw like flashbacks of like their home maybe not being the best home life. So Barbie being like a simpler mind and realizing that and then having emotion around it is almost how if you had someone in the real world who was just like, I know this makes no sense, but just imagine like you just don't know about how like fucked up society is, or like how poorly we treat each other over like superficial things like how we look. And then that person learns of these things for the first time. That's what it felt like watching Barbie's character. And it makes you, as a person who exists in the real world, think like, yeah, it is fucking sad how we treat each other and the types of lines and boundaries that have been drawn up, just like we just fucking invented them. And there's a line in the movie that says something about how, is it the patriarchy was invented because we were uncomfortable? Something like that towards the end of the movie.
I think it was said in a way where it's like trying to draw a parallel again between like patriarchal systems and inventions like Barbie Land. That they're both just ways of people coping with how uncomfortable or difficult or messy real life is.
I think it was something like, in the same way that Barbies were invented for real girls to play with, the patriarchy was also invented because we were uncomfortable with the reality and people wanted a way to cope in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a social construct. The patriarchy.
Everything's a social construct.
But yeah, I thought it was good. And can I just go off on a tangent and just say that I also really liked the cinematography and the set design and even like Ryan Gosling's music video. Like, what was that? But it was so good. Like, it was just fun.
Yeah, it was also just a fun movie, right?
I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. He's got that Benergy, right, Ken? Ben?
Kenergy.
Benergy.
I am Benuff.
You are Ben. What was your favorite scene?
I think, yeah, a lot of the Ken stuff discovering patriarchy was hilarious.
Was funny. Yeah, that was like
The music at the end.
part.
It is just a fun movie too. It doesn't have to be so serious. Like, obviously we've had like,
There
it
are
can lead
serious
to this
thing-
more
yeah,
serious
yeah.
conversation too, but just, yeah, I think you can also just walk out of it having a good time as well, right?
Yeah, I feel like some people said that they cried because there was a couple scenes.
The ending's pretty emotional.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth, the
guess.
whole idea is pretty heartbreaking of this Barbie choosing that she wants to be a woman despite all of the hardship you're going to face as being a woman in the modern world, to still want to choose to experience that. And like, there's sort of what's implied in the explanation of that is they show you like a reel of mothers playing with their daughters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really powerful thing.
And
I think.
America Ferrera's speech, her character, well, she played the mom in the real world.
Yeah.
But yeah, she has a speech that was like, I saw it on TikTok even before the movie because it was like going around.
Yeah, the way they wake
Yeah.
up the Barbies from having been subjugated by the Kens in Barbie Land was to like remind them of the ways in which society has unrealistic expectations of women.
Yeah.
So that's her speech is sort of describing the different ways in which
Yeah,
women.
and how like you're supposed to try but not too hard, and you're supposed to be like a boss but don't be mean, and all these contradictions that women in society face. And she
Yeah.
had delivered a monologue to that effect that all the Barbies were like, "You're right, you're fucking right, girl."
So yeah, I think there was I assume a feeling of catharsis at the end of the movie for women. I don't know. What did you not feel anything at the end?
No, I thought it was nice. Like it was a good commentary that I feel like everyone feels every day. Like I'm very aware and understanding of all the points they make, but seeing it packaged in a movie that's also fun hits differently. I think that's what it is. Because, like, it's a fun movie. It is. It's not just, like, all depression. It really isn't. But it does have undertones of, like, fuck, that's some deep shit. Like, that's real. Like,
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of good art can do that, right?
Yeah.
It can be enjoyed in like a very superficial, I like the Pink in the Ken song, and also makes you actually think about it, right?
And there was some self-awareness. Like, remember when the narrator came over and was like, and we wouldn't cast Margot Robbie for this role if we really wanted to make a point about unrealistic expectations of beauty, or like something.
Yeah.
There was a point where they like pointed
Yeah,
out that like, well, Margot Robbie is beautiful, so just ignore that for a second.
Yeah, they're trying to say Barbie's like having this realization that, she's not going to be beautiful forever.
And then they're like,
The narrator's
never mind.
like, Margot Robbie is beautiful. We acknowledge this, basically.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought that was funny, and just self-awareness with some of the Mattel stuff, which I thought was kind of fascinating, because Barbie is made by Mattel, and Mattel like endorsed this movie, but
They
there's
would have had to sign off on it,
obviously,
right? Yeah.
like, so they work together on it, but there's parts of the script that you could argue like doesn't really make Mattel look that good, like about how they discontinued older Barbies, comments about like making profits and putting profits over people. There's like a couple moments, just a little bit, that you would think like wouldn't have been at the direction of Mattel, but maybe they just agreed because they were convinced that it would still ultimately play well, which it did. But I thought that was interesting.
I think it struck a bit of a balance. If the movie had just been entirely like anti-Barbie, Barbie is... Oh, no, I'm saying the opposite.
Okay.
If the movie had been like super anti-Mattel, it just never would have been made. I think they struck an interesting balance between like acknowledging arguments that like Barbie has been bad for women's self-concept, but also...
And the profit angle too. Like there was a couple comments in there about them placing.
Oh yeah,
profits
Mattel's basically
over-
represented by this board of white men who's just like, oh, we'll sell a realistic Barbie as long as it will make us money, right? And honestly, this is like a kind of incisive critique, because what's happened since the movie... This is a really good example of a movie that should just exist, and it is what it is, and it doesn't need a sequel or a spin-off. I don't need a Ken movie. I don't need to see a
Barbie 2.
Mattel
Ken the
cinematic
movie.
universe. But I think there's been a statement from Mattel already implying that they want, or there's been reports or rumors that they want to use this as a launching pad to turn their other toys into movies now, just to make money.
Interesting.
Whereas I think like this movie really had something to say and exists for a reason, not just as a cash grab. Whereas it sounds like it's sort of Mattel is showing itself for what it is, a company that wants to make money by seeing if they could launch their other IPs into movie franchises now.
Because they saw how successful this was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. Because, like, part of the reason, I think, not the main reason, but one reason why people like this movie is because it is self-aware. And there are a couple notes in there about, like, capitalism, you know?
Yeah,
and people are like, okay, like, thank you for saying that. But also, ironically, this movie has grossed $500 million at the box office.
And
it's
Mattel
making
will
the
have made
executives a lot of money.
Yeah,
So,
we're selling counterculture to people, right?
that's how you make the most.
Yes.
Apparently. I don't know.
All right, so 4 stars.
4 out of what? 4?
5.
What?
Isn't that the normal scale?
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
there's 10.
It's at least 4 stars. I really like this movie.
I liked it. I would give it 5 stars.
5 stars.
Okay.
Was it your favorite movie?
Not because I don't think there was. I'm not saying the script writing was perfect or I wouldn't have changed anything. But I just think overall it did really well for a Barbie movie, which I did not have that high expectations. I think they cast it really well too, and I think the director did a good job. And I think it was really enjoyable to watch, and I was always paying attention. And sometimes, like, with some movies, you're like, I'm fucking bored of this scene. You know what I mean?
In the age of cell phones, if you actually find yourself watching
Yeah.
a movie the whole way through, that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I reflected on a few things in the movie, and they stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I generally liked it. And I like seeing scenes again replayed on TikTok. So, like, so I would give it 5 stars. Yeah, I'm not going to be shy.
Okay.
All right, Oppenheimer. Dun, dun, dun. Dark mode. Turn your dark mode on.
Dark mode. First of all, what did you think of, like, the theater experience of Oppenheimer?
Like IMAX?
Yeah,
just was really loud.
We saw it on a very big screen. Yeah, and it was very loud.
It didn't need to be that.
It didn't need to be that loud.
It didn't need to be that loud.
I think the lasting impression I'll have of Oppenheimer, though, is more about, like, it as an experience than, like, the narrative structure of the movie or anything. Mm-hmm. I don't think it really taught me anything about history that I wasn't pretty aware of before or anything like that.
Do you have a summary of Oppenheimer?
So, okay, Oppenheimer, good point. Oppenheimer is about the development of the atomic bomb during World War II, where the United States got a bunch of, like, the best scientists in the world or in the United States together and from allied countries to develop nuclear weaponry to end the war. Right? Like, I don't want to get into the history of it so much and debate, like...
It's based on a true person, though. Like, Dr. Oppenheimer was a person who existed.
A physicist who... And the movie is, like, just as much about how they created the bomb out in New Mexico and tested it and gave it to the U.S. government. And it's also very much about him when he was no longer useful to the U.S. government, how he sort of became... his past involvement with, like, people sympathetic to the Communist Party, or the fact that he had been sympathetic to communist ideas. It shows how after the war, even though, like, I guess he's a war hero in the sense that he, for the U.S. military to help develop this bomb, he still, when he was no longer useful, became discarded as soon as he was no longer useful to the political class, let's say.
And that was warned to him in the movie anyways, that, like, oh, they only need you when they need you.
Yeah, and I think he was even aware of it too. Because I think, like, one thing coming out of the movie is, like, it really is a character piece. Like, this is mostly about this one guy. And it beautifully acted by Cillian Murphy. A lot of really good actors in this. Some of them in, like, very small parts.
Rami Malek?
Yeah.
Rami Malek? I was like, what? Mr. Robot?
Yeah, I think there aren't many people who can convince, like, incredible actors to just, like, do bit parts or cameos in movies. And
Josh Hartnett?
Christopher Nolan is just one of those guys, I guess, right? Yeah. So yeah, the movie was great. Again, yeah, I don't think we're going to sit here and debate, like, the historical accuracy of it. I don't know enough. But the movie does engage with the sort of the morality of whether it was at all justified that they did drop the atomic bomb, 2 of them on Japan near the very end of the war. And it shows like even the scientists working on it, organizing and having meetings about like Germany has surrendered, Hitler is dead. Like, is it really still justified that our invention is going to be used just to kill hundreds of thousands of people? So the movie engages with, like, I want to reject the sort of idea that this movie is like just a celebration of the invention of the atomic bomb. Anyone who has seen the movie will not tell you that's what it is.
But I understand why people just reject anything that doesn't wholly focus on the victim story. Like, I can also understand that argument.
I can't.
Okay. But like this isn't a story of the victims. It's not. It's a story of this one individual and how they got there and the fame that he had. Yeah,
that is the story of a lot of atrocities in human history.
It's about like
it's very like there's a meeting where they're debating where to drop the bomb on Japan, where they're just sort of very
like
casually.
Which
talking about
is
this
a commentary
list of
in itself, that it just shows like they were like reckless and didn't care.
And that or just like weren't at all being
concerned with human life.
Yeah, right? Because like there's a general who's just like, oh, I'm going to take Kyoto off the list because I went on my honeymoon there and it has a lot of cultural significance. And it's like, oh, there's just a bunch of guys in a room talking about like which city they're going to blow 100,000 people up in. And like to be able to talk about that without like being like, what the fuck are we doing? That is that's like the banality of evil thing, right? And I feel like that is the story of World War II, that it just became a bureaucratic process. And
competition kind of over thinking of lives and people.
I mean, that expression mostly comes from, that's like Hannah Arendt. That's her analysis of like Hitler's Germany and the extermination of Jews was that a lot of the people doing it said they were just following orders and doing a job, right? So it's not, the monster isn't always, it's easier to think of war criminals as someone like literally torturing someone or holding a gun, right? But a lot of it is people at desks making the numbers work and making systems work to do terrible things.
And the scientists who inadvertently or advertently participated in building a bomb. Yeah.
And like I think the ethics of it are, like at one point Oppenheimer's debating with another scientist friend of his about whether they should be building this technology at all. And he says, I don't know if I can trust us with this technology, but I know we can't trust the Nazis with it. And I think that's kind of a pretty fair and reasonable take. Because like, I just don't think you can like take this one guy as sort of like a symbol of this innovation and be like, that is the villain of our story. The atomic weapons were going to be developed, whether it was by the US first or Germany or Russia eventually or someone else.
I feel like I'm just not educated well enough in like if that even makes sense or if that logic makes sense. Like if because there was some suggestion that he didn't think that the other parties could even come up with this technology. So like, does that conflict with him saying, so we have to do it first? But like, I'm not really the person to ask that question.
I think what he was hopeful for was that once it was invented, everyone would realize like we have world-ending weapons now.
Power.
This should that this should force us to come to agreements with other countries on nuclear proliferation or disarmament, because it's the mutually assured. It's the idea of mutually assured destruction, right?
It's strategy, and you kind of see things like that.
Whereas I thought, I have no idea how historically accurate this is, but like after he was mostly like a project manager on the bomb, right? Like, it's not like he was the scientist solely creating the bomb. But after they've developed the bomb, it's been dropped on Japan. He goes in to meet with the president.
Yes, that scene was
telling. I thought it was a little like sort of crude or a little over the top, that scene, but it really wanted to emphasize the point that like he is sitting there with like this existential dread and guilt, and like we really need to take this responsibility super seriously that these weapons exist now. And the president is more just like, we won, you're being a cry. Like he literally
called
calls him
him
a
a
crybaby. Like,
crybaby,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if that is like a fair historical depiction of how
Yeah.
things were, but clearly what they're trying to convey there is like I think he had some hope that the U.S. government would take that responsibility way more seriously. Like he thought they should, and that was a real symbol that that was not the case.
And without, me looking at the historical accuracy, because I'm sure there's like many different sources as well. But I thought the movie was saying that the American military or the government was reckless, irresponsible, and did not care about like, consequences other than like them just wanting to say they won or they did it first. And that was evident in like their haphazard sentences they said. And they were trying to tell Oppenheimer like, whatever, like it's fine. We'll handle it from here. We don't need you anymore and we'll bomb whoever we want. Like that's probably a simplification of like a reality.
Maybe, yeah.
But I also found myself somewhat confused about what Oppenheimer's true feelings were. Because as much like so far we've spoken about how he has expressed guilt in this movie, and there was a scene where he was experiencing like cognitive dissonance, and it was clear where he was giving a congratulations speech because their like test bomb went off or something, and he was like supposed to be like, "This is great, we're doing great things," but he was clearly like seeing visions in the movie and like having cognitive dissonance. So there's that, which is an expression of guilt, remorse, and asking what he was doing. But then there was also scenes of him apparently like enjoying the press and wanting to be the father of the atomic bomb. And maybe the movie was intentionally supposed to have me walk away with like, we're not really sure. Was he enjoying this? Was he happy that he was the father of this destruction, but also simultaneously experience guilt for what he was ultimately responsible for? And the other question is, when they were building it, before it had been built, he talked a lot about just the theory, and that word theory was used repeatedly, how like in theory, and he just wanted to be able, as a physicist, the way I interpreted it, it was very fascinating and satisfying to him as a scientist and physicist to have theory come to life. And it's like the movie was telling us that he was just motivated by that and maybe didn't mentally go so far to think of the consequences further until they were already there, which I find to be like an interesting character development, and I could totally see that if that's historically accurate.
On your first question as to the ambiguity, I kind of think that just makes a good character piece. It wasn't just like a very super obvious character arc of scientist becomes guilty. Like, there is some
bit of play.
complexity to this. There is, I think early on, a lot of the motivation was purely just the ego of wanting to be one of the best scientists in the world on this sort of cutting edge opportunity. But yeah, it is. It does leave you feeling a little unsure of how of his motivations, I guess. But I just think people are complicated and messy like that.
Right. But there's maybe people out there who have a better understanding of the historical accuracy and like might be able to say that he was universally hated and that he really did want mass destruction. And that would not align with what the movie is suggesting.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of like the movie overall? Because I feel like
it was loud.
It was loud, but one reason why I wasn't like the biggest fan of the movie, I thought it was incredibly acted and the story was very interesting, but the presentation of it was like kind of theatrical. Like it was just like, and let me explain, like there was a lot of zoom pans in, there was a lot of music that just kept going, that kept building, and it almost didn't stop. And then the script writing was very like a dance. Like they kept saying lines back and forth that were so perfectly crafted and scripted. None of it felt like real conversation.
People don't really talk that way.
It felt like a theater dance, the whole script.
I know what you mean. And I mean, I think Nolan, the filmmaker, is someone who is very much enamored with the idea of making big feeling spectacle movies. So like there'd be scenes of just like people talking in a boardroom and like the music is swelling and getting loud. And it felt very kind of theatrical or cinematic in like a big way, where sometimes it's just like, can I just listen
was
to a
bit
conversation
overdone.
between
Like,
people.
I don't mind those tools. I think they deliver effect, but I feel like it was overdone to the point that I was noticing it was happening too much, and then I was distracted because I was just noticing it happening.
I guess just in defense, I'll say, like, are people's attention spans so shot that, like, people aren't watching a 3-hour movie about
And this is
congressional
how you get them to watch.
congressional
You just
hearings
assault
about
them with stimulation.
honestly, I feel like that's an element to it, right? Because it almost had like the feeling of a music video, or like a lot of montages, or like quickly developing through scenes with music constantly stimulating you. I don't think people have it in them to watch like a 3-hour very dry procedural drama about the invention of a bomb.
Do you think it was strategic? What are his other movies like? Because you've watched more, you're more familiar with Christopher Nolan.
What are his other movies?
Yeah,
You've
like
seen
how does
his,
it compare though? Are they
I
all
think
kind of like this?
Inception, I feel like, was similarly.
It had quieter moments though. There was definitely more reprieve in Inception.
I'll agree with you there, but I can think of sections of Inception that similarly feel like
a lot
constant
of
music
and,
development through scenes fairly quickly.
But they were used at the right moments and not all the time. I feel like that's the difference.
I mean, if you're a Christopher Nolan fan, I think you should see this movie. If you like Dunkirk, you should see this movie. Although, like, that was very much a war movie, and this was very much a science. Like, there's no scene of war in this movie.
Just the bomb.
Yes.
That's it. Like, just the bomb.
Yeah, but if you think this is like, I'm going to see Saving Private Ryan and like
yeah.
soldiers storming a beach, that is not this movie at all.
What did you think of the Strauss character played by Robert Downey Jr., who is really good at acting? Everyone was a great actor, but I love his acting. I don't know, just everything he does is so good.
Yeah, so I think Robert Downey Jr. represents like a political figure that wants to disparage or destroy Oppenheimer's reputation after the war for his own political motivations. I think it's like an oversimplification, but I think enough of an explanation. And yeah, again, perfect, well acted and interesting, but also like kind of felt like the last hour of the movie engaged with this a lot, whereas the core idea of the creation of the bomb seemed like the much more interesting meat on the bone for a film.
It was kind of a plot line that didn't feel necessary to tell Oppenheimer's story.
Actually, I disagree with that. I think
they needed like the meeting, like
it needed to
not court.
that I think it needed to be there to sort of explain, to give you some sort of resolution, I think. But did I need half an hour? Did I need like 45 minutes of hearings about it? Or could there have been a way of that sort of being the conclusion of the movie without it having like basically an entirely additional act that is just that?
Yeah. And if that's part of the true story and like it helps tell what happened to Oppenheimer like towards the end, then like I'm not saying it should have been removed. But it honestly like confused me a little bit.
It was pretty confusing.
Having come in without that history, it was like, wait, what storyline am I following? Like I felt a little bit like, what?
Yeah, no, yeah. I agree with you. And it could have I suppose it could have, that could have been very briefly sort of acknowledged or foreshadowed instead of like really playing it out in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden he was the main character and you should have seen this twist coming. And I was like, is that the point of this movie? Like,
who's the main character?
Like Strauss.
Oh.
Because you see him at the beginning and then more and more. And then all of a sudden you find out about the twist. And it's like, I don't think that was like the main point of this movie, though.
The structure of the movie, too, was also, I actually think it worked, but I could see some people not liking it. That like the movie opens with, I guess you get some scenes of him still at school and stuff, but like it was jumping around. This isn't like a linear movie, right? Like some of like the very end is suggested at the beginning. It sort of comes, and I guess this is a Christopher Nolan thing, right? He often plays with time. Like the movie begins and ends pretty much with this conversation with Einstein. that
Oh, he likes bookending like that.
he does like
He
bookending
loves
things.
bookends.
That's the spinning top of the
Oh yeah,
movie.
Albert Einstein was in the movie. Well, not the real one.
Yeah.
But like a character.
The corpse of Albert Einstein is in
It's
the
just
movie.
kind of like I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, like does that line
yeah,
up?
I know
guess
who that
so.
is.
Like it's like
Yeah.
just funny. And
Yeah.
we went with your brother.
Your brother.
Your brother, and he had some comments he thought about like some of the math. What did he say?
Yeah, he had
said
an
that there was
anecdote.
a different mathematician, not Einstein, but another one that he was so happy was represented in the movie.
Yeah. Oppenheimer's has come to Einstein to ask some advice. Mostly that they were worried that the bomb could potentially cause a nonstop reaction that could light the atmosphere on fire and destroy the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he wants to present some math to Einstein to get his opinion on this.
And Einstein was like, looks like we're fucked, basically.
He's like, you can find a mathematician, but it was clearly he was coming there more for like a moral conversation, ethical. But yeah, when he finds Einstein, Einstein's walking through the woods with a mathematician. And I guess my brother, Einstein makes the line that like this German mathematician is paranoid that like the Nazis are trying to poison him. And it seemed like a throwaway line. But yeah, we were talking to Matt after, and he's like, yeah, that's one of my favorite mathematicians. Was it Goebbels?
I can't remember.
But anyway, I guess he didn't trust anyone making him food other than his wife. And then when his wife died before him, I think he starved to death.
Because he didn't trust the Germans, yeah. Right? Does that
Or
make
I
sense?
guess anyone at that point. I
Anyone,
guess he's
yeah.
sort of... I don't know how
I don't know the
accurate
history. I just remember hearing Matt talk about it. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
there's like other stories about the
interesting.
math. Of course you would know that.
Math stories with Matt. Yeah, I like the movie a lot. I just... I don't know. I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan, but I love movies like Inception is so good.
Yeah.
You know, The Prestige, Dunkirk was really good as well. But like Tenet and this one aren't my favorites of his, I guess I'll say.
I didn't like it that much.
Yeah.
Like, I think the story is really interesting. And I would have been interested to learn more from like a accurate horse historical perspective. But most of the movie wasn't exactly that. That was like the background noise to this character development of Oppenheimer. Right? Like that's just what he chose as the narrative. But just the way the movie was presented, it being very theatrical, was like I couldn't take like.
Are you
I
saying
couldn't
you would rather a very dry historical?
Yes, I'd rather watch documentaries.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, there are many
I know.
documentaries about World War
But
II.
now
if that's what
I
you
might
wanna-
go watch.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's one related to this, like the Oppenheimer angle
Okay,
of it,
yeah, yeah,
because then
yeah.
I can situate and I have a reference point now,
Sure.
a recent reference point. You know, not
Mm-hmm.
like grade 10 history class. You know, I mean, like, and maybe this will
Yeah.
encourage people to go relearn that history if they haven't looked at that in a long time. Which, you know, I don't blame you for like not picking up the history books
Sure.
unless you're literally in class for that right now. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of average people like me who like aren't history buffs who went to see this movie mainly or maybe because of the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing, and they're like, let's go see both, and now they're like, wait, like
What the fuck
wait,
was that?
what? And now they're like, yeah, maybe I'm encouraged to learn a little bit more about the stories and what happened.
Yeah, the crazy part was when they dropped the bomb on Barbie Land at the end of the movie.
Imagine someone must have made this like a parody of like what happens when you mix the two movies. I'm sure it exists somewhere. Someone
I
use
hope
AI
not.
somewhere on TikTok
Don't do that.
to, you know, make a movie of the two of them.
Don't do it.
So this was an event for us to go out to the movies.
It was.
So I'm just
People
giving
go to the movies?
giving ourselves.
You're
a
clapping
round
for
of
ourselves
applause.
for going
Yeah.
to a movie theater?
We went to see a movie, and it wasn't even on. We didn't even have to rent a VHS.
We did not need to find a VHS player, which are impossible to find.
Yeah, but you know where you can get something like a VHS?
Oh, is this
From
an ad?
Holo Taco. With our recently released Holo Taco
Yeah.
retro collection, which we launched last weekend. But yeah, I'm super excited. Everyone's loving. So thank you guys so much. I've seen everyone just raving for the vibes, sharing all the jelly combos, like all the different colors and gradients you can make with the formula. And the number one thing that I'm seeing from people is that they like love the VHS style box. Yeah. I think it's just brilliant. And so hats off to the team and everyone who was involved in that box, because she was not simple. She was complicated to figure out, like, well, what's on this side and what's on this side and what if you put it in this way? So yeah, it was a lot, but we're really proud of it. And just you can go find that on holotaco.com. That's our 4th year anniversary collection, and it is limited edition, but I am proud that we have good stock, baby. So yeah, you can still pick it up. We don't have a ton of, okay. I mean, it's in stock. We have stock for now. Yeah. Yes. So if you missed it last week, we still have it. Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
All right. So feel free to comment down below what you've seen, what you haven't seen, Barbie or Oppenheimer or Barbenheimer, and let us know your reviews. I'm always interested to see how other people review a movie, like once they've seen the same thing as me. Like seeing two different people's perceptions or reactions to a movie is always interesting, because I mean, like, we all have different life experiences or points of knowledge to refer to. So yeah.
Yeah, let us know what you thought of Barbenheimer.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Wow, I mixed up everyone.
All right, everybody.
Wow.
Thanks so much for watching.
That's what happens when you watch too many movies. And we'll see y'all later.
2.
Bye.